tonight's theme or topic, what do you want to call tonight's show?
Tonight is not magic. Not as in tying a knot, not magic.
So KNOC.
That's the one.
Magic. Right, hang on, let me do a capital K on the knot for K. There we go. Right then. So everything is magic, not magic.
Exactly. Indeed.
Right, I'll do the countdown, press the start button, and then it's over to you, Angie.
Thank you very much.
3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody. Whether you're on YouTube, watching it back, or live, or on the radio, live, or listening to it on the doodah thingy Magick. Yeah, words. Today is not about words. Today is about knots, actually. So, knot magic. One of the first things I came across when I was doing the research for this was Celtic knots. Now, everyone has, well, probably everyone has seen what a Celtic knot looks like, yeah? But do you know why they are a never-ending knot? It's because these knots, and I'll say a little bit. I'm just going to talk a little bit about Celtic knots, yeah, a little bit. So the never-ending knot in a Celtic knot represents the never-ending cycles of nature, the eternal nature of nature, represented in a knot. How cool is that? So there are different types of Celtic knots, obviously. And I've kind of came across, three different types of Celtic knot, yeah? Just as 3 examples, because there's many. In actual fact, for my birthday, I've ordered some books on how to create Celtic knots, which I'm quite looking forward to. So one of the examples is a love knot. So that would be the eternal love knot, yeah? And it's usually 1 or 2 love hearts that are bound together. So it's a binding, yeah? So there's a little clue there about the nature of knots, yeah? You also have the 5-fold knot. So the 5-fold knot, am I still there? Yep. The 5-fold knot corresponds to the roots of the oak tree. So the oak tree in Celtic mythology, and I would say anyway, as far as nature is concerned, is all about strength and steadfastness. Yeah. So you could, if you were doing knot magic, you could incorporate Celtic knots into that magic. Yeah, that I love. You also have the Triskele, or sometimes it's called the Triskelion, which is the 3 spirals. Although originally, now this is an interesting thing, the spirals on the edge of a Triskelion or a Triskel weren't originally spirals. They were legs in movement. So you had 3 legs, a bit like the symbol for the Isle of Man. Bear with me. There we go. I'm back again. I hope you can hear me. Okay. So yeah, a bit like the symbol for the Isle of Man. These, the Triskele, was all about forward moving, but in the center of it, like the hub of a wheel, was stillness. So I absolutely love that. That is, you know, pure nature, pure magic. Yeah. So there was also, and I'll talk a bit more about this sailor's knot, but a sailor's knot was used, amongst other things, as strong connections between two people. So when I was looking at the history of knots, oh, here we go again. There we go. And we're back. Yes. So the history of knots, let me just see if my internet's on. Yes, it is. It shouldn't be doing that. So yeah, the history of knots. I mean, knots go back thousands of years. You could even say that knot magic is primordial. Okay. It spans across the whole planet. Yeah. And it spans across many miles of cultures. So knot magic can be found in just about every single culture on this planet, past and present, and I've no doubt future as well. Yeah. So, for example, in in Egypt, there was something called the knot of Isis. So it was either used to bind. There we go again. Isn't going to go. And I'm back. Let me just check that that one's on. Well, that one's on. So I don't know why it keeps cutting out. That's really weird. So yeah, the knot of Isis was either used to bind or loosen the lives of man with Tut. Now it didn't say. That's not a. Pardon me. A deity, a god or goddess that I was familiar with. Because this is not a big deep dive, I didn't go into who Tut is. So if anyone knows who that is, definitely drop it in the comments or go Google it quickly and come back later. You then have, so in Norse mythology, oh, there we go again. This is really strange. Right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave and come back. Come back in. Okay, so hopefully that'll solve the problem. So in the Norse mythology, you have the fates, the three fates. So theirs was the knot of fate, as in the knot of the three fates, or the Norns as they were known. So again, this is around using knots to weave fate, or weave the fate of a particular person. Yeah. Ariane Rod. She is my go-to knot queen. Because she's all about the weaving. She's all about weaving fate through space and time, weaving through the gaps in the universe. Yeah. And she ties together fate and loyalty. That's what she does. So if you connect with Ariane Rod, you know, it's almost like she expects that loyalty. So that aspect of yourself, because these things are always aspects of yourself, you know, you are loyal to that aspect of yourself as Ariane Rod, as a weaver. Yeah. So quickly skimming back to the endless Celtic knots. So knots were everything. Yeah. When you think about it, before the days of zippers and Velcro, what did we use to fasten things? Knots. And in fact, in some cases, even now, knots are used in preference to, is that even correct grammar? I don't know. Anything else. On boats, for example, you use knots. In things like bushcraft, you use knots. Yeah. So knots are still incredibly powerful things. Yeah. Okay. And they were a skill. I mean, let's face it. If the fate of your crew on your boat depended on the knot that you tied at one point in time, that's powerful. That's very powerful. Yeah. So you had knots in seafaring, engineering, in weaving, in net making, in basket making. So all these things were important, yeah, to those tribes at that time. And I say, like, even now, they're important, yeah. The strength of the knot you tie could mean the difference between life and death, yeah. Like climbers, for example, who use ropes. Some crazy people out there don't use ropes, but for climbers that use ropes, that knot that you tie, difference between life and death, yeah. Um, so they were a thing of great, great power. Um, and this is where when I was doing my research, I was writing notes, and all of a sudden a poem started to appear on the page. I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm writing a poem now. Okay, so this is where the poem begins. Um, Knots can restrain and bind. They hold things together for a while or forever. Knots can save or end your life. Knots can, what does that say? I can't read my writing. That's why I usually type these things out. Knots can save or end your life. Knots can wed you to your wife, which is the hand fasting, which is why we say we're going to tie the knot. Knots have spanned the eons of time, not just for catching fish on a line. The good and the ugly will use a knot. We all know how, we just forgot. Bind the wind in a knot, sell it to a sailor. When the sails drop, he'll thank you later. Feeling angry, sad, or lost? When it comes up, tie it in knots. In healing, too, the humble knot is used. Herculean, it's called, to heal a wound. A witch's knot, draw for protection. An unbroken line, preventing ingression. Tying the knot of love. Hands held fast, 366 days to last. When walking on the darker path, snaring souls, the Babylonians part. Fear ye not the witch's ladder, the old protective hanger. Knots can save, knots can slay. The noose of the hangman at break of day. Not magic is well hidden. Many options for not materials. That's where the poem ended. It's really weird how it went. It flowed from a poem back into, okay, I'm writing notes again. It's just really, it's a bit like a knot. The poem was the knot kind of coming undone, if you like. And either side of that, I have my notes. It's kind of strange how it formed in the middle. Pure magic, huh? Okay, so not magic. So in the days when, well, I'd say even now to some degree, witchcraft was seen as evil, and you could be killed for practicing such. If you were working not magic, it could be very well hidden. Yeah. You could even carry it in your pocket. You could even, Val was talking about the show that she watched, Discovery of Witches, where it's pulled out of the air. Yeah. So, pardon me, it's like you're tying an etheric knot. Pardon me. So there are many options for materials for knot magic. Although I would say, if you're planning at any point to burn it, make sure it's not synthetic. Make sure it's hemp is really nice. Hemp cord is really nice for knot magic if you're going to burn it. And all the different types of knots. I mean, if any of you do macrame or what's the other one called? Oh, what's it called? Not knitting, crochet. I don't crochet. I like macrame, but I don't crochet. I can barely knit either. So, that's all about knots. Essentially, it's knots. Yeah. So if you're a knitter, for example, yeah, and you're a witch, yeah, weave your magic into whatever it is that you are creating. Yeah. Even the color of the threads can be significant to your magic. Although, I suppose the fallback color would always be black because knots, the nature of knots, it's either binding or releasing. Black is a good color for both of those. Yeah. Additions to the knots. Additions. Oh, right. I don't understand my own notes, let alone my own writing. So, for example, the witch's ladder, which is really exciting to make, actually. I made one many years ago, since been deconsecrated and broken down. But the witch's ladder is really cool, and you can knot it however you want. But I did mine with like a plait. Yeah, I think I used ribbon, but you could use whatever you like. Yeah, and you can add things in there. So whatever thing. So the witch's ladder predominantly is a protective implement. Yeah, so you could in that weaving of the plait or however you're doing it. So if you do macrame, you could fashion something absolutely stunning. Yeah, mine was just basic plait with some things hanging off of it. Because at the time I didn't know macrame. So you could, intertwine things that for you personally mean protection. So yeah, a knot. So the nature of knots, yeah. So once a knot is tied and it's tight, it's hard to release. So if you wanted to bind something, yeah, in that knot, you would tie such a knot that would not come undone. Yeah. Because if you want to bind something, you don't want it to accidentally slip and be unbound. So specific knots could be used for particular types of spells using knots. How cool is that? I need to get myself a book on tying knots, actually, or go and find a YouTube channel that talks about tying knots. So what you have is with knots, you have like a push and a pull. Yeah. So even if the knot is tight, there's still forces working in balance to either keep something, well, if you're binding it, would be to keep something in that knot. Yeah, does that make sense? But then if you wanted something bound for a short amount of time to then be released, so that could be, I'll get onto that in a minute actually. So you would use a knot that could be easily released, like a slip knot or something. Yeah. because then it's easy to release whatever it is that you found in the knot. So, yeah, I've already embroidery is another one. So tapestries, when you think about the tapestries, yeah, from medieval times that were created, you've got all of that magic being put into those tapestries. And sometimes if you ever get a chance to see some of these really old tapestries, they can make you feel stuff. Yeah, stuff. The reason being is because all the energy that, that was their kind of BBC News, if you like. Yeah. So, to have a big tapestry that tells you the story of a great battle or something, all that energy all that magic is going to be in those knots. So it's gonna emit some kind of energy, yeah. I reckon anyway. Um, macrame, sewing as well. Sewing is knots, essentially. Knots either side of a piece of material, but it's still not magic, yeah. So, for example, when I made my massive floor altar cloth, um, that was a whole week of mainly evenings, but during the day as well if I had time. Going to bed in the early hours of the morning. Once once my fingers were too sore to do anymore. um, that was pure magic I was putting into that. Um, and yeah, quite an amazing piece of artwork. So yeah, if you are embarking on not magic, like all magical tools, you would cleanse whatever it is that you're using first, and then consecrate and charge for purpose. And what I would also do once, if you were making, for example, a floor altar cloth, you would then cleanse, consecrate, and charge for purpose the whole thing. So you would clean and charge everything, all the elements first, and then you would do the finished creation. Yeah. You can be as, what's that mean? Okay, so when you're doing your knot magic, you can be very specific in the things that you use in your knot magic. So whether it's the type of material you're using for it, the color that you're using for them, things that you might add in, or you can just work with what you've got. Yeah. So whatever the purpose for the knots, each knot requires energetic focus. Obviously, depending on the intent of the magic. So you can use like mantra meditation when you're tying the knot. So if you were doing it inside of a ritual space, you would probably do it that way. You'd have you'd repeat a mantra while you were tying the knots. Yeah. But the other way you can do it, so when we were doing that was 2020, and we did 21 days. It was very intense of alchemical healing with Sekhmet, from a book by Nikki Scully, and I think I think Andy's posted that book up in the group before now, the PDF. So what we were doing, I was recording the meditation because we enjoy very immersive meditation. So there was a process that we kind of formulated very quickly. Ian would go and find all the sound effects and stuff. I would record the meditation, put it all together. We'd go out for a walk, come back, do the meditation. And we did that for 21 days straight, and it was very intense because one of the things that we use in it is not magic. So I think it was for about a week before. When so if you want if you have a cycle of reacting to something, to some trigger, yeah, but you don't want that anymore, yeah, then there's a way to work through it using not magic. So you set that intention. So you'd set that in a ritual space as an intention, to use the thread that you have, and how it works is when those triggers come up and you feel that energy, that, pardon me, those feelings coming up, yeah, you tie the knot. And you tie as many knots as you need to while that is happening, while that emotional stuff is coming up, yeah. And you only stop tying the knot when it dissipates, yeah. So I needed quite a long piece of thread. And in fact, I would tie knots upon knots. I would actually have it was like a knot tower. Quite funny. And then part of the alchemical healing that we did with Sekhmet was to burn that, and then you can use the ashes if you want to in your magic work, which is really cool. So essentially, went off on a bit of a tangent there, sorry. So yeah, you can so there's two different ways that you can do your not magic if you are using it for binding something, yeah. So essentially what the knot does is it's being a container for that energy. So whether that's you want something bound or whether you want to put all your emotional stuff into a knot, essentially it's still a binding, but it's slightly different, yeah. So the knot acts as a container, which is why if it's something that you do not want to get back out, you either bury it when you're done or you burn it, yeah. So if you're going to do not magic, think about how you're using the knots, how you're going to use the knots, yeah. And know that at some point the energy contained therein will be released. But if it's released through burying or burning, then that's an alchemical process. Whereas if you untie it, it's free. Yeah. Does that make sense? So there are different ways to use your not magic. Yeah. So once that is done, whether you're burning, burying, or untying, the spell is then broken. Yeah, it's done. Okay. And you can work that into your intention as well. Use your words to set that. So the really cool thing when I was looking at this is so cool. Yeah, sailors. Yeah, they're going to be going out on a voyage. The wind looks good, but nature, she can be a bit fickle. So what they used to do, they used to buy knotted cord off of, it would have been witches, absolutely 100% would have been witches, because I don't know anyone else who would work with the elementals to bind them in such a fashion. Yeah, so they wouldn't have had had a placard outside the house saying, "Witch here, come and get your sailor's knots." But you know what I mean? They would have known where to go for those things. So how it worked. So You know, they'd be going along for a little while and the wind would be fine. The sails, sail's doing what it should do. It's doing its job. But then if the wind drops, what do you do? Apart from get the oars out. Um, so to combat that, there was this thing called a sailor's knot. So the first knot, when it was untied, so that thing that was bound in there would be untied, and as it was untied, a gentle wind would move the sails and they'd be off again. Yeah. They needed something a little bit more. So if they wanted to go a little bit faster to wherever it was they were going, they would untie knot number 2. Now, how they would know which one was which, I don't know. Or it could be, because it wasn't clear whether you untie, if you want the strong wind, whether you untie, I think it's you untie 2 knots, but it wasn't clear. Yeah. But then if you untie all 3 knots in one go, what do you get? You get hurricane. I absolutely love that. Yeah. And there's no reason why you couldn't do that with other elementals. Yeah. Because if you, for example, if you enjoy water magic, you can collect rain from thunderstorms, or from you can collect snow, and you can use that in different spells. Yeah. So there's no reason why you couldn't use knot magic with the other elementals. I think that's really cool. Another way you can use knot magic, and I learned this a few years ago now, and it's really cool. So ancestor work you can do with knot magic. So what you can do is you can plait or use another knot. Plait is the easiest knot. Yeah. A black and red thread with a thread of your hair. Yeah. And you just weave them all in together. And then if you want to, you can prick your finger and run some blood along that, just to seal that DNA line, if you like. Pardon me. And then you can use that to connect with your ancestors, which is really cool. So you could put it in a mojo bag. You just use it as it is. You can put it on your ancestors' altar. Really, really cool. Another way to use knot magic, and I love this. I absolutely love this. So it's like what the sailor's knots. So you can store power for future use. So how would that work? So for example, be an example. So you could actually use knot magic as defensive magic, as shield magic. Yeah. So how would you do that? I'd probably use, because I love mantra, so I'd use a mantra as I am tying the knot for shield magic. And I would probably make it out of something quite big, so it was quite a big knot that I could easily untie. So I'd probably say a slip knot or a reef knot. Reef knot. I think that's what it's called. Would be perfect for that, because you could untie it surreptitiously very quickly. And then you could reuse that. Yeah. So if you needed defensive magic quickly, you could do that. But you would set that in your intention, in your mantra, in your intention, before you created the knot. Yeah. Or if you were working on manifesting a soul's desire, yeah, you could, I don't know, you'd have to work out how you would do that. How would you store the energy of something that your soul desires? So as you're walking along your synchromistic path, when that time comes, you release it and boom. Interesting. Interesting magic. And interesting because it's a dark moon today. And I can't remember where I saw it, but it's a big, big manifestation energy at the moment. Huge. So there you go. Get knotting is what I say. So yeah, knots obviously used for releasing and letting go. So that was what we were doing with the knots in the Sekhmet work. We were, putting all that very charged energy into those knots, and then when that was burnt, that then transformed, because that was a transmutation of energy. Yeah, it wasn't a releasing of the thing that was bound in the knot. And the ashes of that, if you wanted to, I suppose, how would I use the ashes? I suppose if I wanted to take the essence of, so it's like an essential oil, take the essence of all that work we did in those 21 days into, a little bit of ash on my forehead, then you could do that. Yeah, or you could put it in incense that you were burning. There's all kinds of ways to use, if you're going to burn your knot magic, there's many ways to use the ashes of that. So when you're actually tying the knot, you can use the tying of that knot to speak what you want to release, release, and then untie to release it or burn it. Yeah. Even tying your shoelaces can be magic. Yeah. So if you're going on a hike, for example, yeah, and you're tying your shoelaces, then the magic that you would work into the tying of your shoelaces would be something like, this hike, goes without any problems. We are strong in the hike, all those kinds of things. We have a lovely lunch in the middle of the hike, all those things. Yeah. Hang on, just looking at the end of my notes here. So knots on their own are magic, yeah. But actually using knots in a deliberate way, yeah, it's a working magic, okay, which is known as Heka, Heka. My notes here say, which include weaving and knitting. So all those things are knots, yeah. Oh yes, this is a really cool one. So in Egypt, so like I said, knots span the globe, yeah, span the globe and many different cultures, yeah, through the ages. So Isis and Nephthys, Nephis, I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, but there you go. Fixed Osiris with knotted cords. So in Egypt, knots were used to protect the deceased. That's pretty amazing stuff. So knots are also linked to the afterlife. They are linked to psychopomp energy. They are linked to, safe travel with ferryman, if you like. So, yeah, I think knots are quite something else, actually. And I don't think there's anything else I want to say. So if anyone wants to kind of chime in, because I know about knot magic, but when you only have to dive a little bit deeper to actually see it. If that makes sense.
Well, very interesting, and yeah, I'm trying to come up with some quip regarding knots, but it's not coming to mind.
It's not coming through, is it?
No, not at all. I'll have to tie a knot in that and remember.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Actually, didn't they used to do that in days of old? When you wanted to remember something, you would tie a knot in a piece of string.
Yeah, and tie it around your finger.
Yeah.
I read the Beano.
When you was mentioning about sailors,
yes.
they used to use knots in rope to test the depth of the water that they were in. So they would sink it down so they could count the knots.
Wow.
And the depth of the water that they were in.
Wow. And I think speed is measured in knots, isn't it, on the water?
It certainly is.
Oh my goodness. There you go. There's another. I mean, and how did they work that out? Did they actually make knots and then see how long it took to get from one end of one knot to the other? I don't know.
I think for that case, I think they would just measure out the same length of knot, and then they would be able to measure the depth. And if it was 20 knots depth, then they knew, then it was 10, and then it was 5. Then they knew they were getting into shallower and shallower water.
That's really cool. That's really cool. See, that didn't come up in my research, and that's I really love that. Brilliant.
And the other one is, I'm sure that in days of old, when monks were poor, before they started ripping off the populace, didn't they used to use knots like rosary beads?
Yes. Yeah.
So they would tie knots in a piece of rope or string, and then they would be able to count the whatever they were doing, the prayers that they were doing, based on whichever knot they were in at the time.
In fact, on some mala now, you get knots in between the beads.
Right.
So they're still using the knots, but they've got a bead as well. Yeah. Very cool. I'd forgotten that. Indeed. Anyone else wanna kind of chime in?
I'm trying to think of anything not related. I can Google it first. Val, have you got any naughty knots in your head?
Stop being so naughty.
I've always got naughty bits in my head. Just something Angie said about how you save that knotted magic for later. And in Reiki, when you learn Reiki, you learn to send energy distance to somebody, but you can also program that energy. So like if I wanted to send Angie some energy at 9 o'clock tonight, I could sit here now and send it, but program it to go at 9 o'clock. So if on the same principle, if you want to save the magic that you put in a knot to go forwards in time, as it were, which I think is what you were referring to. It's all about intention, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Intention is 99% of universal law. And I love that. Very cool. How about Josie? Hi, Josie. No? Okay. Did anyone have any questions?
Oh, hi, Josie speaking.
Hi, Josie. That's all right.
I'm a friend of Val's, so I've just chipped in this wonderful, very fascinating session about knots, and it just made me think of the Celtic knots. How in this realm. And the mathematics of because I started reading scriptures, and the numbers and numerology that are weaved into the text, and it all leads to gematria and numerology, and there is a sort of numerical sequence in the weaving of knots, so it's all sort of very, very, it's all very interlinked.
Absolutely.
Sacred.
Yeah, definitely. So I've just got some breaking news here from Ian. He's got some not humour. Get knotted. Not in my name. Not so fast. Not yet. Notting Hill, Witch Hill. So yeah, I could definitely say you could go all over the place with that particular sense of humour. Anyone else have anything they want to share?
Angie, did you, when you were talking about Tut earlier, I put it up in the group. I just wondered if that was Tutankhamun because he was known as King Tut.
It was actually T-A-T. I don't think I was pronounced tart. I don't know. Tarts.
But you know what's really interesting, because I had a quick look online and I came across some knots to do with Tutankhamun's tomb.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I put a little shot up on the radio, but I'm sorry, it's Tat, T-A-T. Okay, I'm searching.
Hang on, let me just have a quick look. Oh, okay. So it's actually Tartanan was the deity of the primordial mound in ancient Egypt religion. His name means risen land or exalted earth. Pardon me. So yeah.
What was his full name?
Tartanan. T-A-T.
Yeah.
E-N-E-N.
Oh, thank you. Not heard of him before.
Because there isn't.
Oh yeah, I've just found it. Yeah.
Ancient Egypt. Tart. No, it seems to be that is his actual name. I think it's just. Well, there is the story of Tart and Ammon.
Oh, he's androgynous.
Okay, interesting.
He was an androgynous protector of nature. That's kind of funny.
Well, so how does that link in with what I was talking about? Let's go back to my notes.
Yeah, I can't remember the sense of it.
Oh, that kind of makes sense. So if he's a deity of the primordial mound, working with Isis to bind or loosen the lives of man. Well, if he's a force of nature, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Big time.
Can I interject? When you said Teuton, I'm thinking Teuton, Tartan, Celts. There was a tenuous link between the Egyptian hieroglyphics are easily translated if you translate them into Welsh. And the Wilson and Blackett books about the sacred isles leading back to the Holy Land. All this history is all sort of been very, very hidden and washed over.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
And the religious sort of lot, you know, the Bible scholars, they seem to have supplanted the Holy Bible and airbrushed everything else out.
Mm.
And this is what I mean about the numbers and numerology and this astrology and astrotheology in there. But when you go to church, it's like stick to the script. Pagan head up.
Mm.
And I think it's just I think it's been very suppressed.
Yeah, and just on that little bit there about the connection between hieroglyphics and Welsh. I mean, there you go. That's the Celtic knot right there. Everything is intertwined.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing.
I mean, I've read the first 5 books. I'm on the 3rd year now, just trying to just bring it out and get my head around it. But I keep drifting away to other scriptures and cultures and where it all came from. And it's like Egyptians bad, Moses good, and stick to the script.
Yeah, I think, you know, all the stories that are found in the Bible are from. It's like when I was looking at knots. I mean, they span the globe, and they span so many different cultures. It's not any one place that they come from. They come from everywhere, and you know, those stories are the same. Yes.
We've got the floods, haven't we, in all different cultures in the 4 corners of the earth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've got 12 apostles. I mean, in England, we've got the 12 Knights of the Round Table. There's a lot of sacred history there that we keep sort of saying, oh, it's just a story, it's just a story. But these stories, I think, they're just vehicles for a much, much deeper thing.
And that'll be that'll be the spiritual journey, 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which is kind of what we're treading now. Which is why part of the reason as well why I thought I'd do this one on Not Magic is you can really use it for healing. It's a valid tool if you are, you know, everyone talks about, oh, I'm having a purge. Okay, well, if you're having a purge, use Not Magic because then it will go for good. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to come back if you're doing Not Magic with it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's so fascinating. And I do get I mean, I do get the sense that we are sort of a lot of people are raising. There is a sense of a raised consciousness, and people realizing that we're more than bacteria in clothes. And,
yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, what we are, who we are, and just sort of anything like this. Oh, that's new agey, but it's not. It's very, very old knowledge.
It's old agey.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's ancient agey. Yeah, this whole idea of the new age is bad is so ridiculous. It's because we are in a new age, so you know it's not a religion; it's a time in space. Do you know what I mean? Oh dear, there's some weird stuff out there in the world at the moment.
Oh, there is. I mean, it's all gone a bit mad at the moment. I think this is why we have to stick to who we are and what we are.
Absolutely. Hold the light. Hold the line.
Absolutely.
Has anyone else got anything else they would like to share or comment or ask?
I came late. Anjaya.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Yes. I tied myself up in knots today.
Shame I missed it. But I caught the end of what you were saying there about the Welsh and King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and hieroglyphics and Alan Wilson and Byron Blackie. That's all good stuff. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That
it's wiped out by the Anglo-Saxons and stuff. Yeah, that's very interesting. I think, was it Josie saying that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how Byron and Blackett, I mean, God rest their souls, but the massive effort that was made to silence them and threaten them, I mean, that tells you something.
Luckily, I think Michael Abernisia did a big interview with Alan Wilson before he died.
Yeah, and also Ross from Britain's Hidden History resurrected the book and crowdfunded its reprinting. And sadly, he passed live on air. I was watching it on a Sunday night. He had a heart attack on air.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And his channel was just gaining momentum because I think Martin Wheatley had been promoting him, and it was starting to get this. It went from a few hundred to about 3,000, and ever growing. And all of a sudden, a very, very fit, healthy man, ex-rugby player. It was very much a family show. It was a beautiful man. And I was watching one Sunday night, and they had to stop the show. Then after a long silence, it came back on all flustered, and he says, don't worry guys, I just had a bit of a do. And then the next morning, it was, I'm sorry to inform you that my dad passed in the early hours of the morning.
Oh my God.
That was it. Yeah. But there are a few godly souls that are keeping the channel going.
Oh, that's good.
And it isn't sadly without his spark.
Mm.
Yeah, it's true.
There's a need to keep these things going, just to keep this knowledge going.
Yeah, they've really done their best to wipe out all the old Welsh stuff. They tried to wipe out the language in the 1800s, yeah. With the trial of the Blue Books, they replaced all the Welsh teachers with English teachers in, I think, the 1830s or something like that. And of course, there was a big backlash against it, so it didn't last.
Ross was raising awareness about how Wales was being used politically. They're trying to build these massive wind farms and destroy all the ancient. Because there's a lot of ancient stuff in Wales, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, I travelled around Wales for the first time last year, or was it the year before? Going around all these castles and history.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Mile for mile.
Yeah.
There are more castles in Wales than anywhere in the UK in such a tiny little part of these isles. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, my mum used to love taking us to Wales and going around the castles. I lost count of how many times we went round castles.
Yeah, well, they were trying to invade,
You just look around these castles and think, well, when you're a child, you think, boring old castles. But when you're an adult, you think, no, it's part of our history. We need to learn this.
Absolutely.
But, with the consciousness that we have now, we're thinking all these castles and all this sort of in such a small area with such a history. What are they not telling us?
Well, they're scared, aren't they? They're petrified of pagans for a start. They are absolutely shitting themselves about paganism on the rise.
Yeah.
And all the stuff and everything that goes with that, It's...
Yeah, very recently I've heard that there's this big stamp among, they're just pushing pagans into the New Ages, aren't they? And very dismissive.
Yeah.
And I mean, although I've got a lot of time for the scriptures, it's nothing like that I've ever heard in church. So I was raised a Catholic for my sins, and as I grew up, I became more and more atheist, and sort of to the point where I think they're just an evil cult.
Mm.
And then in 2020, I kind of found explore spiritual again, because I just became aware of this massive evil force, and where there's dark, there is good. And this is where I started to explore what everything means.
Mm.
But it still remains that when you read the Bible and the scriptures, it's like stick to the script, stick to the script.
That's why it's called scripture.
A lot of it, like you say, it's astrotheology, isn't it? You know, it's
Absolutely. They don't tell you that. I mean, astrotheology. I mean, when you look at Moses, I mean, Moses, he brought in the age of. Well, he brought in the age of Aries, didn't he? And and this is why they were punished for making the red heifer button. The people lost faith and they started to create a bull, which was the previous age, the age of the bull. And then Jesus, he brought in the age of Pisces, and now
with the fishes,
Aquarius. So I think a lot of these characters and stories are very allegorical, which hints to the age that we're living.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's not all that. It's just grovel and pray. Grovel and pray. Don't ask questions.
Don't think outside the box.
Gospels again, with the view that it's astrotheological. You can see the story of the sun through the zodiac year in there, and and the Gospels corresponding to the 4 seasons and stuff. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and Jesus' birth is very strange because they've got him born on the 25th of December, and that should be the death, because the winter solstice is like the death of the sun, and then it lays dead for 3 days and then it resurrects, and that's the birth of the new year. And Jesus should really be born in the age of, I think in the Hebrew, Aviv. That's the spring. He was the Lamb of God. The lambs are born in spring. So I think Jesus was sort of allegorical of new life and new spirit, the Son of God, S-U-N.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I first came across some of that in Zeitgeist years ago, but I'd studied that a lot. It's really interesting, and if Jesus actually existed, but they reckon he was born in April or something more rather than December, but. That's pointing to Sirius, Hello?
Yeah. Are you there?
Let me take this opportunity just to jump in.
Yep.
Fascinating conversation. But can we just get Angie to fire off her show with a few final words so I can stop the recording, and then we can continue the conversation after the recording stops for Angie's show.
Thank you very much.
I didn't know she was still recording.
Okay, final last words. Well, I've just pulled 4 cards actually, and one of them was the tailor. So if you're going to work your knot magic, pay attention to the details of your knot magic, what you're using them for. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, I've stopped it there.